Aš tikrai nežinau, kodėl Henrikas angliškai šneka, bet gerai. Labas. I'm going to switch to English because it's just going to be a little bit easier. Let's see if the technology works. Let's just check it out. All right, you see this? Great. This is not what I'm going to be talking about, but this is just a funny little slide to start with. Let me just kind of give you a little bit of setup. I usually like to have a conversation. This is not necessarily the format for that. So I'm going to try to blabber my way through 30 minutes, and I hope that you will have questions, because that's really, I'm hoping that you'll be able to go away with something useful here. And Henrikas will help me with that. He will walk around with the phone, or you can download his app. Do you want to talk about it?
If you are not willing to ask out loud, you can post your question in this event on Facebook, okay? So you just can write it and we will read it afterwards. So be active, or if you want to use, so later on I will load the page with the code. You can, if you have iPhone, you can download Cloud Mic, one word. Cloud and mic. Mic. But so,
that was a little bit of shameless promotion there. All right, so, and after that, I hope you guys are going to have some questions. If not, we're just going to keep drinking more. So you probably have 2 beers to suffer through. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. A little bit about myself. I am originally from Latvia. That's the name, Jānis. It's probably the most common name that you'll ever see in Latvia. Out of 2 million people, there are 56,000 guys whose name is Jānis. Something to think about. So if you meet a Latvian, by default, you could just try with the name Jānis. OD in the early days, in high school, I had my first business. It was a student business, and it was inspired from parents, because my family, every member of my family had a business. And statistically, you're more likely to have your own business if somebody in your family has. So I did. In 99, I moved to Klaipėda, and I started studying in a university called LCC. And a 4-year degree I crammed into 5 years. And around the 5th year, I had to work on a business plan. And the business plan dealt with how to create a digital agency here in Lithuania that would work with small businesses here and small businesses abroad to help them with the digital marketing. And together with my roommate at that time, Ramondas Nausėda, we created an agency called Emotion out of his bedroom. No webcams were involved. It was great to start with something that we just knew nothing about. And through that experience, you guys probably have a lot of that experience as well. Startup is the hardest path to take for a career, but it's also the most rewarding and the biggest growth. You are the janitor and the CEO at the same day. So after, in 2008, I moved to Canada, a city called Vancouver, and joined the team that would be preparing for the Winter Olympics. Winter Olympics happened in 2010, and I was responsible for the purchase of all the merchandise. You know, if somebody wanted to go online and buy things, or the torch runners, you know, those who run with torches, and they needed all their equipment, and including torches, I needed to make sure that their experience of purchase and experience of interaction is the best that it could be. Obviously, a lot of complaints were written, so I had to address those too. And so through that experience, learned a lot what it means to be customer-centric. Customers are most important, because if they're not going to buy, you're not going to have a business. After Olympics, when it was done in 2010 in summer, I joined an agency called Blast Radius, and I'm with them up to today. It's a very large digital agency that has started back in 96, and in 2007 it was purchased by even larger, bigger marketing and advertising agency called WPP that is even publicly traded. Through this experience, I have been humbled and have learned a lot. The clients that I had the luxury to work with are some of the very known brands. Some of these brands are very maybe local, but they're huge, big budgets, big opportunities. But it also comes with big complexity. Just because they have a big golden, a lot of money, doesn't mean that you can just access it all just like that. So it was going through, I've been working with them and trying to help them to figure out their business and a lot more marketing strategy, less than business strategy. So that's what I've been doing for the past 4.5 years with them. And since this is more of a startup community and startup conversations, while Blast Radius is my day job, that's how I earn money, I've gone through a lot of different startups and still going through different ideas. And some of these have, like Minute CRM, it was back in the day at Emotion, we started this product on an on-demand CRM that at that time there was no on-demand. We ran out of money and it obviously didn't get to the point where we wanted it to be, but we learned a lot. It's still being sold by our partner and it's helping some Lithuanian companies. Who Follows Whom was something for, I made something for Twitter when the Twitter API opened up and saw an opportunity for people to find out who to follow, find common kind of interests. My collection was another project. The logos are not there because I had to make the presentation in the past few days, and all the logos are back in Canada. My collection was, I read a lot of books, I give them out, and I forget that I gave them the next day. So obviously a lot of books have gone bye-bye, and I wanted to create a service that you are able to use Amazon API. It reminds you that you borrowed this book. If you want to purchase a book, buy it yourself. Give it back to me at least. Winery BC project was a project in British Columbia. There are 120 wineries. And when you want to plan a kind of a booze cruise, go for a weekend away and drink a lot or experience a lot of wines, there's no easy way to figure out where they are and how to plan it. So that project was just for that. Strobox was for photographer community. It still is. It's photographers around the world are educating each other about photography and how they made that particular shot. We do annual print publication, celebrate the community, and there are a bunch of other things involved. Out of these 5, currently the Minute CRM and Strobox are alive. Others have been decommissioned for many reasons. So that's so far what I've been up to on a kind of a night shift. There have been other projects that almost happened but didn't happen, and the reasons are many. Somebody else is doing it. Staffing hasn't been proper, or maybe I was looking at the need with my team, and the need wasn't really the true need. It was a good idea, but not good enough, or we just couldn't get a funding for that. And there are some ideas that are currently in progress, and you will notice that the theme that I'm working on is crowdsourcing, digital platforms. That's the sweet spot I'm primarily focusing, kind of very complex builds. And it deals with anything with travel to hairstylists. And some of these projects are very early stage, so if you want to get involved, talk to me after that. I'm always looking for people. But this is just to show that there are a lot of, I'm always working through ideas. And that's the general common theme here you'll see is that ideas. And what you need to keep in mind is that ideas are good as good intentions. They're pointless, useless, without action behind them. Ideas will stay an idea level until somebody will do them. And how many times you share something or you want to do something and people are like, yeah, that's a great idea. You want to help? Not necessarily. You need people behind it. I'm not going to be talking about how to get things done. Many other people are so much better than me to tell to educate or help you to figure out how to get things done. I'm going to be still talking about that thinking part and how to identify like the right idea. So I guess this slide was something by a friend of mine, Jordan Especher. He said to describe what I'm doing for a living, both during the day and during the night. I think about things and I poke holes at them. That's really my job. Even HR department, human resources at Blast Radius doesn't really know what I do. They just kind of name my role by my name. That we need Jānis on this. So I think and I poke holes at them. So this is generally the topic. I'm not going to tell you where to innovate. No, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Where to innovate. I'm not going to tell you how, but where. So let's start it. Changing the world is a big theme these days. Everybody wants to change the world. We see that on newspapers, and we see that like magazines. We hear about that. TED Talks and everybody else. And the problem sometimes, however, is that we are very occupied with comparing ourselves with others. Who has a better idea of changing the world? And we are so occupied with that competition that we forget who we are doing this for. Similarly, it happens with big agencies that I work for. We try to be creative for the sake of creativity, so that we can win awards. Does it help anything? That's a question to think about. Innovation is starting to get there too. Innovation is the biggest buzzword today. I don't know about Lithuania, the resumes that you have here, but in English resumes, at least on LinkedIn, innovation is the second most used buzzword on the profile. So if you have innovation, reconsider having it there. It reminds me of, I can't remember a quote or event that it said, but a question was asked to a person, to a man, "Are you a gentleman?" And he answered, "A true gentleman would never talk of himself as a gentleman." I think there's something similar about innovation and about entrepreneurship. That if you need to put that on your resume or your profile, you might be missing it. So going back to the innovation, we hear about it everywhere. Trends, like industries are being changed, brands are reshaped. And from the big company point of view, the marketers are starting to feel a lot more pressure to think of innovation. From a startup point of view, you constantly are looking for, okay, what do I do? How can I come up with an idea that's suddenly going to be so mind-blowing? And this is where I'm going. The innovation sometimes is becoming a little bit tricky, that you have to be careful. Similarly to how we are overoccupied with changing the world or winning awards, we have to be careful about not looking at innovation for the sake of innovation. When it comes to innovation in marketing, from the clients that I worked with, we are primarily over-occupied with kind of buzz stuff, like Me Too category. You've seen QR codes, you've seen augmented realities. This was something we did for Starbucks, so I can talk about that as a bad idea. What are the things? Augmented realities, games. On their own, they're not bad innovations. They're good innovations. But we have to reconsider how much value they add to business or customer, and we'll realize that they're not very long-lasting and that they don't really add a lot of value. The reason why we like them, though, is because they could be done very quickly. If you're a marketer in an organization, you probably don't, you have to satisfy your bosses and come up with some quick idea, and QR codes might be a great idea. If you're a startup, you will think, how can I promote myself? And you'll read blogs and somebody say, open up a blog. You're like, okay, well, then let me open up a blog. And you will jump into things without realizing that they might not necessarily add a lot of value for you. So be aware of that, because those a lot of buzz stuff is a short term. There's a lot different innovation as well. Marketing CRM, I've categorized in several places. Marketing CRM deals primarily with pushing out messages and building relationships. Foursquare, you could walk through maybe some restaurants and you see, oh, well, this restaurant is going to offer a promotion if I'm going to eat at that place. You have to realize that that's a CRM play. You're reaching out to the customer. You're bringing them in. You're trying to get data. I'll skip the utility. I'll cover that the last one. Disruptive one is what we hear most in the newspapers. Well, newspaper. Who reads newspaper? News, internet. Uber and Airbnb. Who has heard of Airbnb or Uber? Few people. Okay. Uber is a car sharing. So if you think of a taxi, but instead of calling a taxi company, you open up an app and say, pick me up from here and deliver me there. And you will know where that car is and how long it will take you and how much it's going to cost you. Airbnb is you have an apartment and you're going away. Like I'm on my vacation right now, and I have my apartment open for 3 weeks in Vancouver. So I could have used Airbnb. I didn't use it this time to say, well, anybody can stay for a cost. So it suddenly opens a great opportunity for you to travel around, stay at places. Waze, that little pretty icon, recently a half year ago acquired by Google, an Israeli startup. It is a step-by-step turn app that if you want to navigate somewhere, if you don't know where to go, it will show you how to go there. But it's crowdsourced, so if there's a police guy looking for a little bit of earning, and the end of the month is there, and you need to earn money, people will mark him that, oh, there's a guy there. And if you have the same app, you'll see, okay, there's a police guy. So drive slow. You will see that in real time. So those are the disruptive ones. They take existing bad experiences and they reshape them. Reshape them so much that some of the existing businesses are scared. Airbnb and Uber constantly shows up in news that lawsuits are being done. Their cities are kicking them out. Taxi companies are afraid because taxi companies still work as an old model. Airbnb scares the shit out of hotel industry because suddenly you don't need to use hotel. You can stay at some other place. When I travel, if I stay somewhere longer than 4 or 5 days, I want to stay at Airbnb because I have an opportunity to stay with in a place that it looks like it's a house, it's a home, not in a kind of cold hotel room where I go back to. There's nothing pleasant there. Conceptual experiment category, you hear them on blogs or news as well. It could be drones delivering pizza. It could be Tesco did this experiment where in a metro you are able to, with your phone, take a picture or scan the produce that you want, and they will deliver it to you. Google does a lot of that. A lot of these disruptive innovations, they're not for the sake of generating revenue right now. But they're there to start a conversation that it's possible. And it's a great kind of a marketing trick for them as well. And at some point in maybe 10, 5 years, depends on which one it is, you'll start seeing it more. And the operational efficiency category is something that we don't talk a lot about, but it's probably where you have the most benefit. It's things that happen behind the scenes. Things that are not sexy to talk about. The operational improvements, business logics, and so on. And those are arguably the places where you will earn the most money or have the most return on investment rather than pursuing some disruptive innovation. Anyways, and then going back to the utility, that category, I believe, is going to be the category that marketers and startups will have to focus a lot more. Utility goes beyond making something interesting, and it looks into adding value. And by that, what I mean is, let's take a look at FuelBand. Who knows what is a Nike Fuel Band or a Fitbit? One person. Oh, two. All right, so it's a band that tracks your steps. So at the end of the day, you know how many steps you've taken or what kind of activity you've done. What kind of physical activity, Fitbit. It also tracks your sleep, what kind of sleep patterns you have. What you get out of that information is how you're doing health-wise. Are you having enough activity? Sitting? How many of us sit during the day for work? Or for school, in that matter? A lot of us. Sitting is the new smoking. A lot of people are killed from sitting these days. And we think that it's not bad, but it's really, really bad. So Fitbit and Fuel Band, they track your activity and they tell you that, get your ass up and go for a run because you haven't met your quota today, or maybe you need to walk a little bit longer. Do you want to live longer? Kind of. Then go exercise. That's one of the things you could do. So Fuel Band deals with informing you what you're doing. It kind of levels up to informing of how you're performing health-wise generally, and that's their product. However, if you know Nike, when we worked with them, it was clear that Nike Fuel Band was not their revenue generator. That Fuel Band was just there for their marketing. Because when you're going to think of purchasing sneakers, pants, shirts, Nike, you're wearing it on your wrist every day. So Nike naturally will be top of mind. Not the only brand you'll think of, but it's going to be top 3 brands. Charmin, it's a toilet paper company. How do you promote a toilet paper? How do you differentiate a toilet paper between 2-ply, 3-ply, 4-ply? Who cares? I mean, you want to have 4-ply, but beyond that, who cares which brand it is, as long as it's toilet paper. So how do you invest in marketing for toilet paper? It becomes very expensive because it's difficult to differentiate yourself from others. What these guys figured is they created an app that maps out clean bathrooms in New York City and crowdsources to make sure that they're still clean. So what they did, they suddenly added value for the customer. Instead of putting advertising, blasting it on newspapers, billboards, banners, and what else not, they decided to invest their marketing money into providing actual value for the customer. So of course it was branded app, but instead of investing in, again, banners, they provided a need, they addressed a need there. So I believe that category is going to be a lot more popular, and I think this is the exciting part in this room, is that big brands will look for opportunities to invest in. They will be seeking out startups that already are addressing the true needs so that they could white label it or put their brand on it. And for bigger brands, they will be analyzing their marketing budget and will rethink how they invest it, because advertising dollars are becoming more and more expensive. The problem, however, is with all this with all these different innovation, is how to figure out where to innovate. Yes, I'm working with a larger budget, but that doesn't mean that we can do anything. Quite often, the person who hires us is maybe VP of marketing. If we're going to spend $5 million on the project that they hired us for, and that's going to be the wrong decision, they're going to lose their job. So our recommendations are really important for them. They don't want to lose their job. So we need to make sure that what we recommend is actually relevant. To do that, there are many different ways, and this is essentially the rest of the presentation here is how do you go about identifying where to innovate, what's the most relevant way to go about that. And we usually start with the golden circle. How many have heard of Golden Circle by Simon Sinek? Few. Rest of you, Google Simon Sinek, Golden Circle. It's great TED Talk. 10 minutes. It will be great time spent. The basic idea is everything, including our careers and companies, are structured with 3 layers. What, how, why. What is what we're doing? That's very clear. This is what you do. This is what your product is. How is more softer layer. It addresses more about what differentiates you, and that's the thing that sets you apart. That's a little bit softer. The problem is that most companies don't really have why. And making money is not why. It's a result of you're doing business, but it shouldn't be why. So when you look at how and what, they don't really inspire you. That kind of information doesn't inspire you. When you think about how leaders are using information and how they inspire people is with why. It's a little bit softer, and it talks about purpose. In my experience, when you think about startup ideas, quite often you come up with a solution already. You need to do this. There's a need for that. You already have come up with why without going through. You already have come up with what without coming up with why. I'm really good at that. I'm really good at coming up with I think we need to do this. The ideas that you saw there, a bunch of ideas before. They started with what? Let's do something for hairstylists. Let's do something for photographers. Let's do something for Twitter followers. Let's do something for people that are interested in wine, without trying to analyze, going a little bit deeper. So you have to start with why, because why is what truly inspires and what's going to keep you accountable for, and what's going to help you figure out, are you doing the right thing? I'm not going to go in more details. Again, I'm going to give you a bunch of tools that we use so that you could explore further on your own time. And if you have any questions specifically, you can ask me later. But Google him up. Simon Sinek, Golden Circle, very useful. In the agency world, at Blast Radius, we use something similar, not exactly that framework. What we use is the values and beliefs and goals of the company. And it's not just earning money, it's trying to understand what the company truly stands for. And you try to understand their customers, what they stand for, what they're looking for, what their beliefs are, and what their true needs are. And if you come up with an idea, let's say, that is in the blue area only, and that would be a big form, in order to buy something or in order to get something, you have to fill out 50 different questions. Well, sure, it's going to be great for the company to have that data, but the customer is not going to be benefiting from that. Or vice versa, you could come up with an idea that is really good idea for the customer, but you have no idea how to earn money with it, which is not beneficial for the company. I'm really good at that too. What you have to look for is that convergence, is that what's really beneficial both for the customer, where those beliefs are crossing with the company beliefs. Some of the examples we worked with, Starbucks, it's an everyday moment of connection. It's not telling you what to do. It's giving you an idea, guiding, inspiration. It's giving you this kind of a way to validate, are you doing the right thing? For Nivea, it's the beauty of confidence in everyday life. It's something that you start with why. Why are we doing this? Now, what is going to be kind of a go-to place for us to be inspired to validate, are we doing the right thing? Or Nike, this was the best is yet to come. And you realize that the customers care about, even in the most frustrating setbacks, I know that tomorrow can be better because they can work out more, they can perform better, they can work as a team better. As a Nike, from the brand, company point of view, the power of innovation, always pushing to improve, reinvent, and reimagine. In the conversations with them, we realized that if those are their driving things, if this is the thing that they constantly think about, the best is yet to come. It's just kind of a short description. It's not their tagline. They shouldn't be using in promotion, but it's kind of validating. Is why are you doing this? So that's kind of deals with this kind of a shared ideal, kind of why. To discover that orange circle, that what a customer, what we do is we create personas. We start with persona creation. You have to understand who your customers are, and maybe it's not. Don't try to look for this is we have too many customers. There's a grandma, there's grandpa, and then there's a daughter, and so on. You probably have an idea whether your customer is a 18-year-old girl or a 64-year-old guy. Their behaviors are going to be very different on mobile phones and online and so on. It could be Hello Kitties versus, I don't know, a golf. You have to try to understand your customer, who they truly are, and kind of generalize them. What they read, what kind of brands they follow, what occupation they have. And you have to also try to understand their digital savviness. A lot of new businesses are starting in the digital sphere. Think about, if you're doing it for them, how savvy they are, how they understand online websites. Do you have to make them big letters? Do you have to provide a lot of explanations? Do you have to dumb it down? Or they're so advanced that you can jump into it a lot? And you also have to understand where they hang out, what do they read, how do they consume information, magazines, and so on, because that's going to educate you how to reach them and what they think about on an everyday basis. This information about persona creation, there's an information that if you do a website redesign with persona, it's going to give you 4 times better return on investment than if you do a website redesign without it. Knowing your customer is never a bad thing. Don't think of yourself as a customer. It's generally a good idea to start with yourself as, I have this need, so let me start this. But don't assume too much. Go and try to understand and create an idea of this is your customer and this is what you're going to go after. As an example, Lululemon is a yoga apparel company out of Vancouver. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. It's amazing success. Their persona is Ocean. Her name is Ocean. She's 33 years old. She works out 4 times a week, has a boyfriend, has a dog, earns a lot of money. And there's a lot of details that we learned about them. What it helped was focus the marketing message and focus everything you do is focus on Ocean. The young ones, girls that are 20, they aspire to be Ocean. The older ones, they want to still look like Ocean. What you get out of that is that you need to only speak to one type of person. And out of that, you will address everyone. Now, I have worked with many clients that have several personas, so one persona is not an answer. Just the general thought of having an understanding of your customer is very important. You also have to understand what kind of stages they go through. This is a pathway journey that we quite often analyze our customers with. So let's take a look, an example of flower purchase business. So I live in Canada, my mom is in Latvia. Every year she has a birthday, and there are a bunch of other celebrations like Mother's Day, Women's Day, and a lot more, probably something else that I'm forgetting. And I'm realizing, oh crap, I'm late. I need to find flowers quickly for her. So how do I go about doing it? All right, I can find stores. Then if I find some online store, what kind of flowers? I'm going through selecting what could be good for her. And then I'm going purchasing it. And then I'm waiting for my mom to tell me that she received it and she's happy. That's the journey that I've gone through. We have to realize that it's also not just linear, because in a year it's going to happen again. Is email message just enough for them to say, well, you ordered it for your mom last year, why don't you do this year? It's good, but might not be enough. You have to realize that the purchase journey is cyclical, and you want people to come back to you and purchase it again, but don't treat them like they're new customers. So with this journey, what we do, and this was for pet insurance, because if something happens to your pet, you want to make sure you can pay for it. We mapped out their experience. So if you're trying to purchase flowers like me, there are certain stages where you're really frustrated. It's a really bad experience. That might be a hint to focus on some of these areas right now. Don't try to reinvent the entire journey. Look at maybe the lower ones, where to start. But you need to know what they're doing. You need to even dig a lot more deeper. Now we have to go way beyond mobile phones and desktop computers. People hang out on Twitter, Facebook, a bunch of social network channels, and they could get exposed to your message through word of mouth. They could find so many places, conversation about you. You have to understand where they are, because then you will be able to control what's being talked about you, and you'll be able to reach them better as well. And you also have to recognize the fact that at different stages, you need to talk to them differently. Initially, it was important to market yourself. Hey, buy me, use me. This is going to be good for you. But once they're your customer, stop it. They bought into you. More having engagement with them. And so you have to realize when it's appropriate to have what kind of style of communication with them. And lastly, we put that all together, all this information in high-value scenarios. And the high-value scenarios, what they really are, is kind of the most common journeys that you need to support with your product or service. Let's take a look at the flower business again. There could be probably two big ones. It's about finding the right flower that I want and quickly ordering it. Now, there could be many other features that website could support, like reminders or calendars or information or inspiration or e-cards, I don't know. You could do those things, but you want to make sure that two main things are being done really, really well. Find the right flower, order it very quickly. If you're struggling with that process, then you're probably losing money on this. I did coincidentally work with the flower business before in my life, and the purchase, especially the purchase journey, is pretty painful quite often, especially if you try to order through banks and you have to put all their credentials and what else. Longer the journey, more people will drop out, and you will lose money. So having high-value scenarios helps us to identify and prioritize what are the things that you truly need to focus on. So what do you do with all those ideas when you have generated ideas that would be useful for the customer? The problem is there are constraints. You know the general quality, time, and money. There are always constraints, and so what we need to start looking at is prioritizing. And to do so, what we do is we've primarily focused before that on that orange circle about the customer. What is important for them? Where do they hang out? How do they work? How do they behave online? We need to start looking at that information and validate with business needs. This is a kind of a classical business framework. You can start with digital vision and business goals and digital objectives and so on. The basic premise of it is your main purpose is not just to make money. Try to get a little bit more detailed. What is your business goal? And then try to understand how does that business goal is met by marketing objectives. Quite often the businesses, including the big ones that you saw, the business goal is make money, and the marketing department is, their goal is, promote them. Job well done. Yes, at the end of the year, if you ask them, have you done it? Yes. There's no way to say no, because they have promoted them, but have they done it properly? If you identify those goals and kind of go a little bit more detailed, you'll realize that there needs to be a lot of help. And so when we take those ideas that we come up with for the customer, and it's like, hey, customer might enjoy this, or we might address this pain point, we then make sure that it's beneficial for the business. A lot of ideas, again, and I'm really good at coming up with great ideas that are not beneficial for the business. This is where you validate that. Is this going to generate you money? Is this maybe going to save you money, which is generating money? Is this maybe addressing a really big pain point for the business? And that's essentially, you use this kind of framework on any business that we work with. So we started with where to innovate, but just because you know where to doesn't mean you have a clear idea of when. When is a whole nother conversation. So it's about creating a roadmap. And with a roadmap, it's very interesting. Clients that hire us, they come to us and say, whatever the first version is, whether we make a website or a product or an app, it has to be the best. Okay, everybody says that. They want to have the best thing ever, so that everybody would talk about that. It's a really difficult thing to do, to make it so good that everybody will be blown away with the first version. What we have to educate them is there are probably 3 stages. The first stage I call fix it. If there's an existing platform, existing product or service that you do, you have to fix it. There's a lot of issues probably that you're having. So just address the most necessary things. You don't even need strategy for that. You probably know what's wrong. If the website doesn't show some images, fix it. If the app doesn't connect to a server, which is very crucial, just fix it. Those are the things you need to look at right now. The second stage is about meeting the benchmark, and that's when you start looking, okay, what is everyone else doing? I mean, we need to make sure that we do that, or maybe you don't need to catch up with them, but at least be in a similar level with them. And that takes a while. That could be, quite often, it could be for small startups, it could be a couple of months. For bigger startups, it's a year or 2. And only then the next phase would be about leading it. This is where you're pursuing a lot more innovation because you have solved all the big problems. You have made sure that you're on top with everyone else, and that's when you can pursue kind of innovation and see what kind of things you could pursue there. With a roadmap creation with all the ideas that you came up with, and you say, oh, this is a good idea, this is a good idea, when? Creating a roadmap is like creating a business plan. It never works out the way you planned it. Never. I did a business plan in high school, and I thought, whoa, this is the shit. And I started in LCC in the first year, and there was a business plan that LCC students had to create on the first business year. And I realized whatever I did in high school was a joke. And I thought, whoa, this is a big business plan. And then on the last year at university, I created another business plan, and I realized that whatever we did first year was a joke. And then me and Raimondas, we had a business, and we realized whatever that business plan was, it was a joke. But the exercise is really what's really necessary. Through that exercise and planning, you will understand what kind of resources you need or what kind of team you need to get your job done. So do your business plan, but don't beat yourself up if you haven't followed through it, because pretty much nobody has. So that's about just kind of like finishing it up. Innovation is not just a CEO's job. You have to understand that when we looked at the Golden Circle, and the CEOs often come to you and say, well, I came up with an idea, make it happen. From any level, whether you're a developer or a marketer, you want to be at a conversation level as early as possible, because you will be able to provide a lot of more insightful things to them that will shape the product or service in a way that them and themselves, they were not able to. You have to look way beyond the kind of buzz stuff. Stop looking at easy things to do. Look at, think about that chart that we looked at, the utility marketing. It's tempting to open up a Facebook page and just say, whoa, now we have a Facebook page. Is it useful for you? I don't know, how many fans you have there. It doesn't matter, maybe you have 100, but is it really beneficial for your business? How is it generating money? Or if you are creating this app that you thought is the best thing ever, because somebody else did it in the States, does it work in Lithuania? Might not be for a Lithuanian audience. So kind of go through and go beyond the kind of a me too, I want to repeat it, I want to copy it. and look through what really truly is necessary. Again, you could address a need. Whether you're addressing the real need is a whole other conversation. Look about the long-term value. Again, short-term versus long-term. Short-term is easier. The budgets are more better budgets to do that. But the long-term is going to give you a lot more value. And essentially, this kind of boils down. When you are thinking about innovation, and that's both within a larger organization or maybe your startups or your ideas, the key word that you always have to look for is relevancy. Don't settle for the obvious. Here's one thing that sometimes is difficult to describe, but what I've recently realized is that quite often the product that is your main revenue generator or product or service, what you do, should not be the main marketing message. Think about that. All right, well, and as a result, if you really try to look for the relevancy and if you're really trying to understand your customer, I think you will improve the world in a more positive way. And to link it up to the very first slide, hopefully it will help us to avoid getting punched in the face. So, thank you. If you have questions, Henrik will hook his app up.
Yeah. So, who
have a question?
Question.
Wow.
Fantastic.
So who have
a question?
Or
who is planning to start
a startup or business? Yeah. So
Did anybody write anything on Facebook?
I don't think so.
All right, well,
Let's work like this.
We see one question over there, and we will try to use it.
I will ask him.
Я класс lietuviškai, jeigu angliškai nenorite, aš supratysiu, bet reikės atsitakyti angliškai.
Kodėl tavo projektuose neveikia dabartinis?
Kokis projektas?
Visos tos, kurios buvo įkūrę.
Some of the projects that didn't work, there are many reasons. Once you're starting working on your idea, you think that nobody's doing it. That you're the only one doing it and that this is so unique. And when you start doing research, maybe you still haven't found anything. And I was talking to a gentleman here and he described the idea he was looking for. And I thought, well, I'm pretty sure somebody's doing it. It's not that nobody's doing it. There's probably somebody even has tried it. You just have to use different words. So let's say that you couldn't find anything. After a while, there might be a realization that yes, it's a good idea, but it's not going to make you money. And at the end of the day, you kind of want to earn money. Why else to do that? You could make a social change. It could be social entrepreneurship you could pursue, but still, nonprofit organizations still have to make money to survive. So most of the ideas that I mentioned there, some didn't happen because somebody else did it. And so it's always frustrating to see, you had this great idea. I had a conversation with one investor about an e-commerce quality badge. And it's essentially when you buy something from an e-commerce store, how do you know it's an okay store? That it technically works okay, that it's safe? Well, there's Hacker Save and a bunch of other badges there. But how do you know that it's a really good service, that the customer service will be good, that the returns will be good? We worked out the system that it would be a great idea and great business opportunity for us to do this. And the investor said, not going to happen. Nope, a bad idea. He was an e-commerce as well guy. After 2 weeks, he connected me to this another guy that he just became friends with, who is doing exactly the same thing, just started half a year ago, has 2 offices around the world, and is thinking about selling the company to the same company that I thought of selling it out to. So we just didn't. We were not there early enough, and we didn't get enough people to be excited about that. Other ideas didn't happen simply because just couldn't get other people excited about it. You know, it's another measurement is if you look at that and you have a great idea, talk to other people. Can you get other people excited? Because you will need to get your customers excited about your product. There are many reasons. Primarily, somebody else did it, or it didn't work out, or we realized there's big complexities, or there's no money. Any other question? There's a guy.
You did mention it is important, it's an advantage if you have a family member who has his own business. But do you think that skills that you need to be a businessman are developed, or are you that depends on your character, or how are you born with that?
So the question is about business, is about skills, whether you need to be a developer or a business person? Oh, of course. That's why there are business schools or schools. They're going to get you to a certain level, though, but just like with any practice, you need to just do it. It was easier, obviously, when your family members have done it. You have some connections with accounting, you have some connections with legal. To do it yourself, and there are guys here that could help you with that, to start your business or do it. But it's just easier if you have a family member, but that's not a limit. No, it's just statistically, when I mentioned it, it was statistically you're more likely to create your own business if you have somebody from the family already having a business. Anything else?
Hello?
I confused you so much. All right, there's a question.
Lietuvos kompanija, kažkokia tai eina į vakarų Europą ar kokia tai vakarų rinka, kokios dažniausios yra klaidos, kurias daro save pristatydama tą kompaniją, pavyzdžiui, tiem, kaip sakant, vakarų verslininkam, kurie galbūt būtų iš kažkokie tai paslaugų, tai pirkėjai ar tai klientai potencialūs.
So the question is if there are Lithuanian businesses that try to go out into Western Europe or any kind of Western countries, what are the mistakes they do in presenting themselves or offering themselves to other businesses? Very good question. Let's see. One possibly could be it goes both ways, thinking too small or thinking too big, that they have solved the world problem, that there's nobody else like that out there. Quite often, I back in the day, worked with this company that produced furniture in Lithuania and wanted to sell it to UK. Well, there are a lot of businesses doing that already, but they were very persistent that they wanted to do. So it's not, I think the key thing is trying to find why, well, and not to kind of go back to my presentation, is the chances are whatever you do, somebody else is doing. If you have an idea, here's a reality check. If you have an amazing idea, the chances are somebody else has the same idea in the world. Somebody else has done it already, and somebody else has done it and closed it. You're not the only one, and the same thing is about businesses here. We compete with Poland, with Latvia, and a bunch of other countries. And when we present ourselves, we don't really differentiate ourselves other than just cost. And the biggest mistake would go probably down to cost, because if the cost is the only differentiator to yourself, it's really difficult to compete, because there's always Poland or China. Or Romania, I guess. That would be one thing, just kind of differentiating yourself on a cost. Lithuania is not cheap. We try to present ourselves as a really good alternative place to save costs. When people from North America look at this region, yes, it's cheaper, but it's not cheap. So that's from cost. I'm sure there are some others, and let me think about that, and we could talk about it like after this conversation. But it's a really good question. From the marketing, I've seen just being spread too wide as well. You are trying to address too many things, or like when me and Raimundas we started agency, we were doing print, we were doing web, we were doing logo development, we were doing photography. Oh my goodness, we didn't do anything good. We dropped print really early because there were other people that were much better. We dropped logo design because we found a partner that really did a really good job. And I think the key in the business is when you figure out that kind of a niche or focus, that you can really, really improve. And I think for Emotion, it's kind of complex platform development and more complex branding solutions. For whoever is here, I would just encourage, think about kind of a niche. That is the easiest one to right now to win. It's going to be harder to focus on because, if you're focusing with, I just heard about a pet adoption, and let's imagine that it's like a parrot adoption only, that it would be just parrots. That's a very, very narrow market. That's probably a more difficult one, but you kind of have to balance it out. And I think a lot of Latvian businesses that I've looked at, I can't think of Lithuanian ones right now, is that they have too broad of a focus, but they do a lot. Yes, we can do it. And maybe this is the cue for me. So I hope this answers your question. Yep. Henricus, there's one using it. You can do it. It's gonna work.
Connecting.
We're trying.
By the way, thank you for great presentation.
You're welcome.
I'll ask in Lithuania. Ar gali duoti pavyzdį, pavyzdžiui, kai pasiūlėt kompanijai kažkokį reklamos sprendimą marketinginį, kuris jūsų nuomonė buvo tobulas tai kompanijai, bet jį atmetė, jo nepriėmė?
The question is, are there any examples that we have offered to companies as a marketing solution that it was a good idea, but they didn't take it? Yes. Right now I'm in a place where if you have to think about a joke, you hear a lot of jokes every day, and I have to think of a joke and I can't remember. Let me see, there's tons. Quite often we go to the clients with ideas. I can describe to you general feel of what it is like. When you work with larger companies, they hire you for your ideas. That's what you're there for. Give them ideas, and it's their decision to say yes or no. Generally, at the very early stage, we give them a very different ideas, very broad ideas, and they like it. They're like, yeah, this is awesome. Let's do this. And once we start actually analyzing what it would take to make it or do it, a lot of politics comes in, internal processes kick in, and the bigger reason for not doing things is because it's just internally they cannot support it. They have a desire, but they're not necessarily able to do it. One example, maybe another will come in mind, is I'm working with governments and I'm working with big brands, and one of the governments, it's a province in Canada. They have a Ministry of Highway. And the Ministry of Highway in Saskatchewan, that's the province, during the winter, it's really cold. You think it's cold here, it's really, really cold there. It's so cold that they have to make sure that they report the road conditions on 3 times per day. Because if somebody is going to go on a bad road, they can die. If they go from work to home, people can die. So you want to make sure that, it's safe. So people, every day, they check online or on radio or on an app, is it safe to go on that road? Has it been cleaned? Because there's so much snow and it could be so cold. We offered them, have you heard of startup Waves that I was speaking about? It's the crowdsourced, real-time information about road conditions. And we said, okay, so you have this whole ministry and this whole team working on something that could be easily replaced by an iPhone app. They didn't take this seriously, and so then we started working with them on how to improve their existing offer. And whatever we wanted to improve or change, they were really scared. And they were not only risk averse, they were change averse. They didn't want to even change things because according to the survey that they did, everything was working fine. So they kind of hire us to make it better, but then they don't want to change things. So again, internal politics is primarily most of the time, whatever we pitch, internal politics is what kind of stops it. And that is why when we work with clients, we have to talk to many different people. Now, usually there's one person that brings you in, hired you, maybe VP of marketing or CEO, but you really need to talk to everybody to get on the board with that. So imagine making a website for an organization and you haven't talked to stakeholders there. You're probably going to run into issues, and when you maybe launch a service, people will not believe in you. They will have struggle with you. It's like, why are you doing this, and so on. And it could be a good idea. It's just they're not gonna like it. So I can't remember exactly like examples, but I'm sure something will come out. When I should have said that. Stick around for 10 minutes. I'll probably come up with something. Anything else?
Yeah. I would like to ask, who have a business idea here?
Who has a business idea? Lift
Yeah.
it, like raise your arm. Who has a business idea? Or maybe who has just a general idea, just an idea?
1, 2. Is there anybody that would like to have an idea? Raise your hand.
More.
So, Jānis, could you tell where they could start? What they could do every day to find that idea?
That was the whole talk there.
I know, but what if you would be from Klaipėda?
Yeah.
Not so many big businesses that like startups or anything similar. What you would do? And you don't have an idea.
The easiest one is to look at yourself. What would you pay for? Don't think of what you would like. There's a lot of things you would like and you would not want to pay for. Think about apps. If you make apps, what was the last app you downloaded? What was the last app you paid for? The chances are not that many. It's a tough place to go into. Doesn't mean that there's no opportunities. I think there are great opportunities, but think about what you would pay for yourself. There's a service or something you need, and if you sit down and you brainstorm, we have worked with people that you come up with in the workshop and you bring different disciplines together. Don't do it in vacuum by yourself. So if you're good at as a programmer, bring somebody who is a doctor maybe, or bring somebody who is a designer. Bring different people together and just do brainstorm for the sake of brainstorm. What I do with a couple of colleagues of mine is on a monthly basis we go to a restaurant for lunchtime because we work together, and so we could go out for lunch, and we have a pho, which is a soup, and a startup idea conversation. So we eat a soup, and usually 3 guys or 4, or sometimes somebody else joins. And what the task is, bring to the table an idea, a business idea. Doesn't matter how terrible it is, just bring it to the table, and we will, at the table, we will choose one idea that we will try to improve at that table a little bit more. And as a result, so we started just drafting ideas on a napkin, and as a result, on the Instagram feed, I have posted a bunch of ideas that just started that way. There was a conversation about iBeacon. iBeacon is becoming really huge, and one of our friends was so passionate about iBeacon. I didn't understand iBeacon. I thought I still think it's a little silly, but I think it's going to be huge. He was passionate, so he brought that iBeacon idea to the table, and we were able to, okay, well, so how do I understand idea, and how can I improve it? And through this exercise, you just need to train your brain. Don't think that the first idea you'll come up with is that idea. Get your friends, go for a couple of beers, and say, okay, once a month we'll meet up and we'll just share ideas, because that's going to be your sounding board. You'll be able to brainstorm, and they will be able to tell you this idea is sucky, or there's something to build on top of it. I think that's the easiest thing you could do. If you have to bribe your friends, just buy them beers, and they'll be the sounding board for you. But the key thing is just get different disciplines. Don't take all the friends that think the same that you or have the same background like you. Different backgrounds will provide a lot more valuable insight there. Good question. All right, well, I'm going to be around here for a while if you have any specific questions, or if you want to look at the different frameworks that were presented there. Again, there's a lot of information. I realize that's so much information you could probably go numb here. But there's another question.
Ar tas darbas, kurį dabar darai, ar tai buvo tavo asmeninės biznio idėjos realizacija, ar tiesiog kaip čia gavosi?
So the question is whether the work that I'm doing right now, is this something that I wanted or planned for?
Something that you want to proceed, like your own business idea, but instead of that you went to the business.
Okay, yeah. Well, the reality of moving to another country is you will do anything. And I really wanted to live around the world a bit more, and I was ready to do anything. I started I was really lucky. I started in a company. I didn't have to work any kind of hard job or do kind of different jobs that it would be difficult to move around. However, the working for a larger company gives you the safety of salary, but that not always gives you the biggest challenge. And so that's why the easiest way to combine that was to work for a large company to earn salary, and then in the evening or weekends work on your own ideas. I would not recommend taking an idea and jumping 100% in it, at least not initially for a while, because you need to make sure that it's sound, that you're able to generate some money, or maybe your investors are able to help you that. So the direction where I'm going is definitely going into the startup world, whether doing my own startup or maybe one of these ideas I still would like to pursue. The ideas that I mentioned there are something that I'm really excited about, and I'm looking for people. I am also looking to join accelerator or incubators, because a lot of smaller companies need the same consulting. They need help trying to figure out these questions. They are really good at their product or service, but they're not necessarily good at thinking how to reach out their customers and how to maybe make their product better. So that's what I'd like to consult more. So yeah, I started it as a startup, and I went into working for a bigger company, and I think I'm going to go back to the startup again. But I think it was a combination of moving to Canada and having a lot of opportunities there, and I had to join a bigger organization. I hope that answers the question. All right, guys. Well, thanks for bearing through this with me. And again, if you're going to have any questions, I'll be around. So enjoy.
Is it just this kind of amount of applause for Jānis? He came from Vancouver, right? No. I asked that because we're filming this, and if we want to invite people like Jānis to Mazgas, we have to applaud it at least. So, those who don't have an idea, we feel you. I feel you Vytautas feel you, all Mazgas feel you. That's why we started showing Stanford course, how to start a startup if you want to start a startup. We started on Monday to show it at 7 in the evening. And if you want to join us, you can come tomorrow also at 7 in the evening in the LCC Innovation Lab. And we'll show you what Stanford, great university, teaches you. And then we can have a discussion where you can start finding the ideas. And this is a great example. What Jānis told you is basically if you want to find an idea, you constantly have to search for that. It's not like you sitting in the bath, and that's what I talked last week. So be proactive. If you want, join us on Thursday to watch the video and talk about your idea. Or you can approach us in person. You can talk with Jānis right now. Can we upload your presentation?
Yeah.
So we will put Jānis' presentation in Facebook group. And if you have more questions, I believe Jānis will check it afterwards and he can answer if it's a good question, of course. So, thank you for coming. See you tomorrow in LCC. And check the Facebook group and we'll post you with more events and more opportunities that you can do. So, thank you and big applause for you. And the music, the reggae.